So in the last lecture, we took the first step to handle errors properly. But there is a problem in the current implementation. Let's say tomorrow we decide to change the message that we send to the client. With the current implementation, we have to go to every route handler where we have used this try-catch block and modify that message. Also, in a real-world situation, here we're going to log the exception. Again, if in the future we decide to change how we log the exception, we have to go back to several route handlers and make that change. So we want to move this logic for handling errors to somewhere central. So if in the future we want to make a change in how we handle errors, there is a single place we need to modify. So let's go to index.js. This is where we're registering our middleware functions. In Express, we have a special kind of middleware function called error middleware. We register that middleware function after all the existing middleware functions. So here, we call app.use and pass a middleware function with 3 parameters: request, response, and next. But we also add the 4th argument here at the front. That's the exception or error that we catch somewhere else in the application. Now, in this function, we add all the logic for handling errors in our application. So back to genres.js, I'm going to cut this logic from here and paste it here. Now, back to genres.js one more time. Here in this catch block, we want to pass control to our error handling middleware function. So we add a new parameter here. Next, we have seen this before. So we call next to pass control to the next middleware function in the request processing pipeline. So here in the catch block, we call next and pass this exception as an argument. Now, because in index.js, we registered this function after all the existing middleware functions, when we call next, we'll end up here. And the exception that we pass will be the first argument to this function. Now with this new implementation, we have a single place to handle errors. So if you want to make changes in the future, we only come back and modify this function. Now in a real-world application, the logic for logging the exception might be several lines long. We don't want to add all that details in index.js. So in index.js, we just want to do orchestration. We want to do high-level arrangement. The details should be encapsulated in different modules. So I'm going to move this function, this middleware function, to a separate module. Back here, we have this middleware folder. Let's add a new file here, error.js. Now back in index.js, I'm going to cut this function here. And in error.js, set module that exports to this function. So now we separated the details of error handling in a separate module, and this results in better separation of concerns. So in index.js, on the top, we need to load this module, const error. We set this to require. Go to the middleware folder and load the error module. And finally, here, we call app.use and pass our error handling function here. Note that I'm not calling this function. I'm just passing a reference to this function, okay? So now our application has better design. However, in genres.js, we have this try-catch block. And as you can tell, we have to repeat this in every route handler in our application. We have to add this catch exception. And here we should call next. This is repetitive. So in the next lecture, I'm going to show you how to improve this implementation.